Welcome back to a new episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about our second issue with Luke's genealogy. So let's clear the board. We're going to be talking about Arni and Admin. These names don't appear in the Old Testament, yet Luke inserts them. So how on earth are we going to come to terms with this? Let's first get our head around what the issue is. So if you refer to Matthew or 1 Chronicles chapter 2, you're going to read that Hezron had Aram, who had Aminadab. Now, when you compare this to Luke, Luke says that Hezron had Arni, who had Admin, who had Aminadab. So Luke has done something very strange between the names Hezron and Aminadab. Let us refer to Nolan's commentary on Luke to get a better picture of what's going on. Nolan writes, the names from David to Abraham, except in details of spelling, agree with the Mattean list, except that Luke has Admin and Arni, where Matthew has Aram. So here Nolan is just noting the fact that in the place of Aram, Luke has inserted Arni and Admin. Now, let us deal with each of these names separately. Let's first deal with who on earth Arni is. Nolan continues to write about Arni. Except for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the names may be found conveniently in 1 Chronicles 2, 1-5. The Masoretic has Ram from Matthew's Aram, for which Luke's equivalent is Arni. So here Nolan is telling us that most likely Arni is just a different spelling of Aram. So Arni poses us no issue at all. It's just a different way of spelling Aram. Nolan continues. He writes, Luke's Arni is closest to Aran of Ruth, 419 Septuagint, but probably is traced to the reading of the Hebrew Harni. So again, this is just further evidence that Arni is just a different spelling of Aram. So Arni isn't a contradiction at all. The same cannot be said about Admin. Admin is where things get sticky. About Admin, Nolan writes, there is nothing in the Masoretic or Septuagint corresponding to Luke's Admin. It's normally taken as an abbreviation or corruption of Aminadab, which either in the transmission history of the Gospel or earlier has accidentally been included along with the correct form. So here, Nolan is telling us that the insertion of Admin into the genealogy is totally unprecedented. There's nothing in the Masoretic or Septuagint that would lead us to believe that Admin should be here. He notes that it's possibly a corruption of the name Aminadab, and then just both of them have been inserted for some reason. We have the full correct spelling of Aminadab and then a shorter corrupted version. The short and sweet explanation of this is we have no idea why Admin is here. He's not supposed to be there, yet he is. Why on earth is he there? Let's now go to Fitzmyer, and he writes the following concerning this section. Admin, son of Arni, together with the foregoing name, these present the greatest difficulty of the text-critical state of the Lucan genealogy. The number of variants at this point is great, and the modern critical editions of the Greek New Testament have preferred to read these three names even without brackets because it is the difficult reading. Part of the reason for the variety is precisely the inability of copyists to identify them with any known person in the Old Testament. So here Fitzmyer is saying that because no one knows who on earth Arni is, and to a certain extent Admin, no one knows who Admin and Arni is, there is a huge amount of textual variance when we consult the manuscripts. And this has led Fitzmyer into concluding that this is the greatest difficulty in the text-critical state of the Lucan genealogy. Let's now consider the manuscripts and see the variety of readings we get. So let's first begin by consulting Codex Vaticanus. In Codex Vaticanus, we read that Hezron had Arni, who had Aminadab, who had Nashon. Now, when we compare this to what our Bibles read today, we see that Vaticanus has skipped Aminadab. There's no Aminadab here. He has left it out for some reason. Let's now go to a different manuscript. Let's now go to Codex Sinaiticus. And in Codex Sinaiticus, something quite funny has happened. We have Hezron, we have Arni, we have Admin. Now, I want to draw your attention to what's happening here. You can see that it originally says Adam, which is strange because there's no Adam anywhere else, Adam. But then you can see that a later scribe has come and corrected the issue and turned Adam into Aminadab and then Nashon. So just right here, you can see there's real confusion on the part of the scribes as to what exactly is happening in this section of Luke's genealogy. Let's now go to a different manuscript. Let's now go to Codex Alexandrianus, which has Hezron, Aram, Aminadab, and Nahshon. So here, we don't have Arni, which again is just showing you that there's a huge variety when it comes to the different manuscripts at this portion. So let's just lay it all out here. And as you can see, our 3 earliest manuscripts all have different readings, which is not a good thing. It is very hard for us, therefore, to determine what the original text said. With that being said, the creators of the UBS NA, Nestle-Aland text, tell us that it probably has Arni, Admin, and Aminadab. This is most likely what Luke originally wrote, the inclusion of Arni, Admin, and Aminadab. If you have the KJV, which is dependent upon the Textus Receptus, you're actually going to have something else. They have simply gone for Aram and Aminadab. So if we go here, you can see that the KJV, and for whatever reason the NIV, these 2 versions actually have no contradiction with the Old Testament because they have just gone with the Old Testament reading. This, I think, is a bit shifty because the manuscripts don't bear this out. The manuscripts tell us something far more like this, and that is why the New Revised Standard Version and the ESV both include Arni and Admin. So this is just showing you this is most likely what we're dealing with. We have Arni and Admin. But let us keep in mind what Metzger said about Luke's genealogy, that the committee adopted what seems to be the least unsatisfactory form of the text. And this again is hardly a ringing endorsement. Yet, so we have to keep this in mind. But with that being said, this is most likely the original form of Luke's genealogy. It has Arni and Admin. So now we have to ask the question, why on earth has Luke inserted these names when there's absolutely no reason for him to doing so? There is no reason in the Septuagint or the Masoretic text. Why has he done this? I like Bock's confusion in his commentary. He writes, the presence of Admin and Arni is hard to explain in the textual history if they were not originally present. Why would they be added? Why would anyone do this? More importantly, why has Luke done this to us? Why has Luke put us in this situation when we have no idea what's going on? Now, I'm going to do some speculation here. And if you've watched my previous video, hopefully you know what my speculation is going to be. Maybe you can guess it. But let's now do my speculation. Again, this is my speculation, but I think it's pretty good. All right. Luke wants to write a genealogy of Jesus. And he thinks to himself, you know what? I really want there to be 77 generations. And he's writing out his genealogy, and he comes to this section. And he realizes that if he goes Hezron, Arni, and Aminadab, he is not going to reach his 77 names. And also, that each multiple of 7 is not going to be an important character. So, Luke does something which could be perceived as a little shifty. He adds in an extra name. He adds Admin between Arni and Aminadab, and by so doing, by adding this extra name, he can achieve his 77 generations. What are your thoughts on this? Is Luke allowed to do something like this? What do you think? Let's now go to our criteria and ask whether or not we should put a tick, a cross, or a question mark. Let me begin by saying that this is the least important part of the video. The most important part of the video is where I explain the topic to you. It is not my final criteria, my final judgment. Let me say that. Okay, with that being said, I think we honestly have to put a cross here. And the reason why we have to put a cross here is because there is nothing in the Septuagint or any other source that we can appeal to as to why Matthew would put Admin here. I think Luke has put it here in order to get his 77 generations. Unlike the extra Canaan, well, the extra Canaan is in some versions of the Septuagint. It is in the book of Jubilees. Luke has some reason for inserting it. The reason why we put a question mark here is because the overwhelming evidence in the opposite direction probably tells us it wasn't not in the original Genesis 11, yet there is some precedent. When we come to Admin, there is no precedent. Luke has to have no reason for doing this based on his sources. The only reason he does so, it seems, to achieve his 77 names, which may seem to some people as being a bit devious. I don't like calling Luke devious, but I think I honestly have to put across here. There seems to be no reason, except for getting the 77 generations, for Luke to do this. But again, you have to make your own decisions, and hopefully I've given you enough reasons in this video and enough explanations for you to get your head around this topic and make your own conclusions. But I feel I have to put across here. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one, in which we talk about Joseph, Judah, Simeon, and Levi. I'll see you then.